we heard that he was going to be coming to the Buddhist Centre and giving a talk on Padmasambhava Day at the LBC. And so, myself and my friends came along and came to that. And that's when I first saw him. And I remember we were sort of sitting in the shrine room waiting for him to arrive, and great anticipation. And then he sort of turned up, and I remember looking at him and just trying to make him out, because he just sort of didn't really look English. And he had quite dark hair and fairly dark skin, actually. And I couldn't categorise him. I remember thinking that I couldn't even work out how old he was. It was like he seemed to evade that sort of description. So he began the talk. I remember him beginning the talk, and I could make quite a lot of sense. It was quite a rational beginning, and then suddenly it's almost like the ground sort of dipped from under me, and I couldn't quite work out what he was saying. And I knew that people were laughing, so he was making jokes and things. And I wasn't sure what I was very new, so I had no idea what he was talking about really. But at the same time, during the talk, I had this strong sense that he was talking personally, directly to me. Very much like it felt like this one-to-one communication, which was very strong, really. It's almost quite intimate, which was quite strange considering I didn't really know what he was talking about in a way. And then I remember we did a puja straight after, and I hadn't got a clue what was happening. Nobody had said what the puja was, and then went home, and I think I was just sort of a bit bowled over and really intrigued. I think it was like a cumulative effect, but the thing that really struck for me then was going on a weekend retreat. I was in a study group, and somebody said, "Oh, what does it mean to be an order member?" Someone asked the group leader, "What does it mean to be a bodhisattva?" And the person just explained it briefly, and I just thought, well, that's what I want to be. So occasionally there were seminars for women at Padmaloka, and Bhante would lead those. And actually, I think on this occasion, I remember he'd been in India, I think, and he wasn't that well. He used to have quite a lot of stomach problems. He had quite a bloated sort of stomach, which was due to his malnutrition in his time in India. So he wasn't at his best. And he was running 2 study seminars, 2 groups, so one group in the morning, one group in the afternoon, so doing different texts. So it was quite a demanding thing for him, actually. But anyway, this is what he was doing. And I was just sort of struck by, after a while, I remember thinking something cropped up to my mind. I thought, this is something a bit strange about this man, something a bit strange. And I couldn't think what it was initially. And then I thought, I know what it is. He's just present and mindful the whole time. I haven't seen him not being mindful. And it just felt not quite human. It's almost like I had this sort of flash, it's not quite human, he's not quite human. It was a sense of presence, I suppose. Like I could obviously feel something. I felt like he was present the whole time. And so his mind wasn't wandering away at all. It was just quite naturally, his mind was sort of on what he was doing. And maybe it gave me an idea of what mindfulness was. I think maybe that is how we learn, isn't it? Through seeing something, a quality embodied in somebody's actions. That's it. Because I mean, my life, everything was so distracting, really. That was one of my early experiences of learning to meditate, was thinking, realizing when you have your eyes closed, ideally you're not watching TV or reading a book or eating something, drinking something, playing with a cat, smoking a joint, whatever it is. You're actually just doing this one thing. And I think I was so used to doing several things at once. The idea of just doing one thing at a time was completely novel and a bit scary. But here was this person, I suppose there was a wholeness about that, wasn't there? Just bringing his whole self to what he was doing. Yeah. The year I was ordained was one of the first years that a team of women had got together to create a sort of ordination process, actually. And we had a whole series of retreats. So it was like a selection process. So there were about 20 or 30 of us invited to a weekend, which was held at Taraloka. And then from that, maybe 10 or 15 of us were invited to a 2-week retreat in some sort of hired house somewhere in Cheshire, I think. And then from that, it was all a bit anxiety provoking, obviously. From that, about 7 or 8 were invited to a month-long retreat at Rivendell. And the idea being that people would get ordained on that retreat if they were seen as ready during the retreat. And about halfway through, Bhante arrived, and by then I'd sort of forgotten to some extent about ordination. And then Vajragita, she was actually living in the little community with me, so I knew her quite well. And so she came that evening to me and she said, can we have a walk? And I thought, oh no, more feedback. And she picked a flower and she said, you're going to be ordained, gave me a flower. So we had 4 days notice of being ordained and had to choose a sadhana. And so that was my next meeting with Bhante, really was because I was feeling really confused about what sadhana to take, because I'd been very devoted to Padmasambhava, which was linked with quite an active approach to the spiritual life, really. And that sort of crumbled a bit in the earlier part of the year, and Green Tara had emerged. And then she was a little bit of a not a very strong connection. She'd sort of dissolved, and by the time I got to the month, I hadn't really any particular person. But then also all the members on the team, for better or for worse, gave these wonderful talks about their own yidam, their own connection with their yidam, and one after the other, I sort of fell in love with each of these yidams. So then I went to see Bhante a couple of days later to get a bit of help from him, see what he thought. And so what he said to me actually was, I was about to move to Taraloka straight after the ordination. So he said, think about the place you're going to move to. What qualities will that draw out in you? And then choose a sadhana which will draw out other qualities. So that was very interesting. And somehow we came to Green Tara as being it. And I won't say too much about the private ordination, but what stood out was chanting the refuges and precepts with Bhante. I hadn't really thought about that aspect of I'd thought about, how you think about the name, what's your name going to be, and sadhana, how that's going to go. But there was something so beautiful about chanting the refuges and precepts after Bhante. It just felt completely out of time. And I suddenly realised, this is so beautiful. I suddenly thought, I don't want this to stop. I want this to go on forever. But still, there's a sort of glimpse of timelessness, but I suppose I brought it back to time, and suddenly having this longing for it to continue. But Bhante's chanting was so beautiful, and something so sort of pure, and about that. So very, very much deeply touched by that. Everything that you are can be communicated through voice or way of being or gesture, can't it? And maybe chanting is very pure. It hasn't got lots of words, and the words have no real meaning. So you can just receive a pure note, and it can only come from as deep as you are deep. So Bhante was pretty deep. So I think there's something about, perhaps he was able to convey something, his depth. When he gave me the Green Tara mantra, there was just get a beautiful sense of this sort of dancing green figure, actually, or just a sort of sense of light over here somewhere. A bit of me thinks, oh no, that didn't happen. But there was this. That's why I sort of thought, there's that green dancing figure. So it's a little bit on the side of consciousness somewhere, not sure if that happened or whether that didn't happen. But it felt like there was a sense of that, of a sort of delightful quality. And then the name, Bhante said, delighting in kindness, is a name of Tara. That's Tara's, you can see Tara's having those qualities. So when I found out what it actually meant, I was a bit feeling... I wanted something a bit more dynamic and exciting. So kindness and compassion, I thought that's boring. He probably thinks I'm just boring and, got these feminine qualities, and just like my mother, and particularly as time went on, realising how much I took that for granted as a quality in myself and in others, and that actually how valuable it was. And when I was at Taraloka, I very much, that was one of the things I really really took it intentionally as a practice to really be as kind and also as welcoming. and just ordinarily, humanly friendly to people, to put people at their ease so that they could actually enjoy being there. But I think if you can enjoy being somewhere, then you're open, aren't you? You're open to the Dharma. And so I used to talk to Tara a bit, and Tara, sort of, how can we help teach the Dharma at Taraloka? And I had this sense that she replied, just get people here and I'll do the rest.